Well, everyone, in this recording, I'll be talking about Transfiguration. You can read about this, believe it's in the Gospel of John. But anyway, go onto online to the King James Version, look for it yourself. Christ separated himself from his disciples, I mean in the body. John, Peter, and James, he took them with him unto a mountain. And when they were up on the mountain, Christ removed himself again physically from them, and his skin began to shine. The clothes of his clothes became white as snow, and he began to shine like the sun. So what happened here? His divinity was revealed unto them. And as you know, they also saw a vision of Elijah and Moses speaking with him. And what this was of a short endurance, they also heard a voice from heaven say, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him." Now, what happened here was that, technically speaking, Christ, being God Himself, He was residing in a human body, and He just revealed a bit of His divinity, a bit of His true essence to them. It was not the Most High in His raw essence that they saw, because they wouldn't be able to handle that. He just revealed a bit more of his divine, his divine appearance. So Christ revealed more of the divine frequency onto them. That's what we call the transfiguration. He was still in the human body, but while in the human body, they saw more of his divinity. They've already experienced his divinity by the miracles he was doing, but now those three men, those three apostles, he revealed a bit more onto them. And when they went down from the mountain, there was this man that came unto Jesus. He had a young son, a boy that was demon possessed, and the demon even made the boy harm himself, fall into fire and all of that. So it was a dangerous circumstance. But the other disciples that were left, that were not invited to the transfiguration scene, they were not able to cast out the devil. So Jesus took care of the situation, but not before he complained about their unbelief. Well, the remainder of the disciples, those that were not invited to the transfiguration, they asked Christ, why were we not able to cast the devil out? Christ made clear that that type of unbelief is only cast out by fasting and prayer. So Jesus was not referring to the demons. He was referring to unbelief. So understand this well. John, Peter, and James, when you look further in history, that John was the same John the Apostle that later wrote the books of Revelation, and he also had written letters in which he explained that God is love. That's a sentence the world often abuses, but nevertheless that's the same John, and that same Apostle John became around 100 years old. He endured a lot of persecution in his life. They even threw boiling oil upon him, but he didn't die. So they just put him in some concentration camp in the Mediterranean. So that's Apostle John. The other Peter, after Peter failed and denied him 3 times after the resurrection, Peter became the pastor, and I would say the leader of the first congregation that grew exponentially. And you had James. You also have the book of James in scripture. So just understand that when Christ selected these three disciples to go with him on the mountain, he had his purpose in doing it. Now, I'm not going to decipher, I'm not going to attempt to decipher all the motives of the Lord for doing this. I just want to point out something to you. Those three disciples, they were capable of handling the transfiguration scene. Those others who were left behind in town, they couldn't even cast the devil out because of their unbelief. Now listen, you can have faith and unbelief at the same time. Okay? Okay, let me say like this. You can have faith. You only need faith as a mustard seed. But if you have unbelief somewhere, if you are stuck somewhere in your thinking concerning the promises of the Most High towards you or concerning His word to you, then that unbelief can hinder the faith from manifesting. And that is when you, I talk to believers now, when you as a believer are operating not on the frequency of faith, but on the frequency of doubt, on the frequency of, basically when you're still operating on the frequency of fear, that's the frequency of the world, when you're still operating in that stagnant energy, that's unbelief. So, and that's what, and I want to mention it first. Those other three disciples, I'm not saying they had no unbelief anywhere, but they were, how do I say it? They were capable of handling more manifestation than those others. Why? I'm not here to give all answers. The thing is, they trusted the Lord. Peter even wanted to build tents for Elijah and Moses. But Peter did not understand that it was just a vision he saw, something that was about to come. But I want to point out another few things about this. When you, I'm talking to you as a believer, when you begin to operate on the frequency of faith, that's when power, love, and a sound mind are manifested in you and around you. It's the same as you going through a transfiguration. Now, you are not the Most High, so it's not as if your skin is becoming. It's not as if your skin begins to glow like the sun and all of that. No, because you're not the Most High. Nevertheless, when you begin to operate on the right frequency as a believer, it is as if you're going through a transfiguration. Why? Because to you, it is as if everything has remained the same. You yourself you're not noticing anything, but others around you are going to notice something about your presence. You can't enter a place anymore and people not noticing you're there. Because the power that's emitted from you when you enter a place, people are going to notice that some presence has entered with them, has entered the room. So when you go to the shop, or when you go to the barber, or when you're in the mall, wherever you are, when you operate on the right frequency, demons are going to notice that you are there, and also unbelievers are going to notice you're there. And here's the thing, you will have people sometimes staring at you or wondering things about you, and you think, what's wrong with those people? Those people, look, they sense that some presence, some power has come near them, and they sense that it's emitting from you, but they can't explain what it is. That's what's going on. And here's the thing, they can't handle it. They can't handle it. Because first of all, most of them aren't even born again. So they can't even handle the scriptures. So if they can't handle the scriptures are written on the physical, how are they going to handle anything that's manifested in the spiritual? Because it's first manifested in the spiritual, and then it works out in the natural. In the physical realm. When you go through your transfiguration, that is when you go through deliverance, expect that some people are going to become frightened of you. That has nothing to do with you. That does not mean that you're creepy. That does not mean that you are, how to say, weird or horrible in any sense. It comes down to this. When you, I'm talking generally now, when you are used to the low frequencies, when you are used to stagnant energy your whole life, when you are used to channeling violence, either by avoiding confrontation, either by acting out violently to get what you want, because everyone that operates on the low frequencies are operating in the domain of violence, because fear always lets itself out in violence one way or the other. So those people that operate in that frequency, they are used and programmed to perceive potential as a threat unless they can control the potential. I hope you're getting what I'm saying here. So when they suddenly notice that there is some power emitting from you that they can't understand, they can't grasp it, but they still see you, it's still you in the same body. You're not wearing more expensive clothes. You don't have $1 million in the bank account. So they can't point out anywhere why this presence is shining out of you. They're going to get frightened. What happened when Christ delivered the demon-possessed man, the man that had a legion of demons? You know the story. Of course, the demons asked permission of Jesus to enter to the swine. Jesus permitted. The demons drowned the swine. 2 herds went into town and into the countryside, reported everything. When the people came and saw the man that was delivered, they became frightened. They were so afraid of seeing that former demon-possessed man in his right mind. What happened? That man went through his own transfiguration. But the people knew that it was not the man that did it. They knew it was Jesus, because that was the report given unto them, and they saw Jesus over there. What happened? They became frightened, and they even began to push Jesus to leave them alone, to get out of there. And Jesus did. Jesus gave them over to their fear. They should have repented and rejoiced, but because they persisted in darkness, Christ gave them over. And the rest is history. And here's another thing. When Peter witnessed the transfiguration, he wanted to build a tent. Now, why do you build a tent? In order to lodge in it. If there's a guest over there, you want to lodge them. And Peter wanted to build 3 tents. One for the monster, that's for Christ, one for Elijah, and one for Moses. So, look, that's also a worldly mindset. Why? Because people in the world, they operate on the lower frequency. That's the frequency of fear, and they are operating in stagnant energy. People that are operating in that grayness, they are used to structures to control or to attempt to control. It's not real control because they can't control, but they are used to attempts to control their environment. An easy example, a boy feels emotions, all sexual interest in a girl. The girl is receptive. They begin a relationship. Now the guy wants the girl to, now he wants the girl to stop talking to all her other friends, and especially male friends or male relatives, male family members. Why? Because he wants to secure the outcome that the girl's there. And because he's operating by fear, he's now jealous, he's now obsessed with trying to regulate her contacts. Another thing, a community now I'm going to use a bigger example. You have a community that's afraid that their violence might destroy themselves, so they entrust themselves to a violent authority, which is in this case a government, and they permit the governments to abuse them and rob them, because at least now everyone is angry as a government and not against each other. So, what does, for example, someone, and you want to give another illustration to just for sure, just to make it clear. You have someone that won the lottery, a few $1,000s, not much. He now wants to start a business to make sure the money keeps coming in. There's also, again, it's an attempt to control. And that same worldly mindset Peter still had. Peter was not delivered from it. That's why he wanted to build a tent in order to keep that manifestation over there. Now, listen to this. When you are a believer, I'm not saying that as a believer you should not use your brains. Of course you use your brain, because you are a believer. You are a new creature. So you are restored. You are complete in Christ. However, as a believer, you do not aim to control nor regulate outcomes. Okay, let me give an example. If you get out of the house and you want to put the locks on your door, just put the locks on your door. If you leave your bicycle somewhere, just put the locks on it if you want. Being a believer does not mean that you become presumptuous and, how to say, superstitious. Being a believer does not mean that you deny facts, okay? If there are thieves around, there are thieves around, okay? So, as a believer, you have a brain, you use it. However, you're not becoming suspicious and you're not becoming obsessed with keeping the right people around and keeping the bad people out. Look, there's a time that you need to shake the dust off your feet, of course. But again, as a believer, because you're not operating, at least that's how it's supposed to be, because you're not operating on the lower frequencies, you're not into that. Why? Because stagnant energy can be contained in a location, because it's stagnant, it's negative, it's dark. But when you operate on the faith frequency, Jesus compared it as the wind coming from one direction and blowing to another direction without you being able to control it. That's how it is when you operate in the spirit. For example, as a believer, of course, you go to your job to pay the rental. You do all the practical things, but as a believer, you don't hold on to that, okay? Because you understand very well things can happen in the economy. People can lose their jobs. Okay, so yes, you do keep your practical responsibilities, of course, but you're not going to identify with them. That's why every day you wake up, you decree wholeness, you decree blessings, you decree wealth, you decree resources coming to you. You decree the promises in Isaiah chapter 60. You decree that the forces of the nations are coming to you. That is the wealth of the nations. You decree all of these things. And well, by doing this, you're operating on the high frequency. So what happens is I'm going to give an illustration of how it might happen in a certain situation. But however, understand this is just an example, and it will not always work this way. But you understand. Okay, let's say you have Kevin. Kevin is doing what I've just said. He's agreeing the word and all of that, and he's keeping, because it's natural to be active, he's keeping his natural responsibilities. He brushes his teeth, he washes himself, he washes clothes, he cleans his room. He does all of that. He goes to his job, he comes back, he remains active. At this time, however, there was a big economic crisis in the country where Kevin lived, and there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of tensions among employers, also because of new measures from the government. So a lot of people did lose their jobs. However, Kevin, he remained active. And suddenly Kevin began to receive more assignments at his job. And he began to work more. And after 2 months, he made about 2,000 euros extra than his normal wage. And it was after the 2 months he began to realize, hold on a minute, how did this happen? But Kevin just kept on going. But Kevin was not even aware of most of those people around him being afraid of losing their job. Kevin was not. That whole fright and that whole negative tension, that whole negative energy of worry didn't even occur to him and didn't get a hold of him. And the people around him, they became very suspicious. Because they thought, hold on a minute, why isn't Kevin afraid? Why is Kevin so relaxed? Everyone else is freaking out. Is Kevin a part of some conspiracy? Is Kevin in witchcraft? Is he a wizard? Is he a warlock? People began to envision all kinds of stuff. What was going on? Kevin was operating on the faith frequency. Now, were things easy for Kevin? No, things were not easy for him. But nevertheless, because he operated on that frequency, miracles happen. And this is a misconception people have. Miracles happen to you automatically when you operate on the faith frequency. And look, when you look carefully at the miracles Jesus performs that are recorded in the New Testament, most of those miracles happens to people who had faith, who were operating on that frequency. I'm going to repeat it. Most of the miracles that Jesus performed that are recorded in the New Testament, the receptors were people that operated on the faith frequency. There were two blind men that heard that Jesus was in town and they began to cry. They began to scream, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us. And the people around them were screaming at them, shut up, shut up. And the more people were trying to tell them to shut up, the more they began to shout, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us. When Jesus came to them, they were playing that they wanted to see, they wanted to be delivered, and they were delivered just like that, and they followed Christ. Hold on a minute, they were blind. So people could have used violence on them. They could have even easily be killed and thrown away somewhere. Because listen, the Roman government was not that much interested in the lives of people in need. They weren't. So there wouldn't be any crime scene investigation done to find who the killers were and all of that. That didn't exist. So those men, they were beggars also because they were blind. They were in danger for even violating the expectations of the community around them. And to make things worse, they couldn't even see who those people were. So they couldn't even flee if they wanted to. Because where would they flee? I mean, they could flee, but they couldn't see where they were going. Those men, despite their condition, they operate on the faith frequency. And listen, there were times that Jesus told people, your faith has saved you. Look, a lot of people, they are seeking for charismatic churches. Look, I'm not against a charismatic congregation, okay? I'm not against it, okay? What I'm just saying is, don't put it in your head that you need to be part of some social club where you see manifestations. Because if you put that mindset that you need to be part of some social club to receive manifestations, that's a pagan mindset. And you need to throw that out. Look, people often want a guide, let's say an instruction manual, how to fix things. Well, let me tell you, Christ is not going to give you a manual. He wants you to walk by faith. He wants you to trust Him. Yes, you keep your daily responsibilities, not out of fear, not out of fright, but because you have faith that the frequency that you operate upon will, I would say, how to say this more effectively. You have trust that by walking by faith, far more is accomplished through the word than that you can do on your own. So that's why you're at ease, you're relaxing. That doesn't mean you're just laying on the bed all day long. No, you are active, but not because, or you think if I do nothing, nothing happens. No, you are doing things in agreement with the Holy Spirit. You're operating under the power of the Holy Spirit because you are in agreement with the finished work of Jesus Christ on your behalf. And you are in agreement with it. And look, I'm going to say this before I close this video. I think I've already said it. Not everyone will be able to handle you when you operate on the faith frequency. There are going to be people They're going to become scared of you. They're going to become angry with you. They're going to become very upset with you. They're going to become violent against you. That violence is just their way of hiding how vulnerable they feel. And there are going to be places where people are going to ask you to leave because they can't stand the power that's emitting from you. There are going to be times that there's going to be so much resistance, both spiritually and also physically against you, that you don't know what's going on. You think you're praying, doing everything right, but still things are happening. Now listen, just because you're operating by faith, it does not mean that bad things don't happen. Bad things happen all the time, but you don't identify with bad things. They happen, but you don't identify with it. It's a fact, you acknowledge the fact, however you meditate and you consider the promise, not the alleged problem. And here's the thing, as a believer, problems are fleeing from you. Just remain on the faith frequency. That being said, y'all be blessed.